Hey, what's going on, folks? It's Mike here, and welcome to the next lesson in the SDL2 C++ series. And for this one, I've got a real treat for you. We're going to be looking at the SDL2 Mixer library and getting it set up. And if you want, just as a teaser, you can even hear some of my custom recording on a guitar here. And maybe you'll want to use this track someday in your own creations. Anyway, with that said, folks, let's go ahead and dive into the lesson and add some looping sounds into our creations. Alrighty, folks, so let's go ahead and get started with the SDL2 Mixer library. And just to show you in our project that we do have a music asset, I've included just a few guitar chords that I was playing just so that we have some sort of loop or a sound that we can play here. So what we're going to need to do is install the SDL Mixer library. So let's go ahead and figure out how to do this. Now, if you're following along on a Mac machine or Windows, you can simply install the binaries and make sure that they put in your frameworks file. This is going to be similar to how we've installed libraries in earlier parts of this series. If you have trouble, just go ahead and let me know, and I'll try to help you out in the comments below. So let's go ahead and do a search here. apt-get install SDL2 Mixer. And let's see, we can't find the package, so what I'm going to go ahead and do, since I don't know the exact thing, I can either do one of two things. I can Google, or I can just try to search here. So apt search SDL2, and we'll find a bunch of the different libraries or packages that are available here. So here we can find libSDL2. There's a networking library, TrueType fonts, which we've previously seen, and I'm just going to go ahead and find the mixer. Now, again, I usually want the development libraries here because we want the header files to be available for us. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this here, and then I'll retry my command, but this time specifying the right package here with the mixer. So for me, I've already had this installed, so we are good to go here. But for those of you who haven't, again, I'll just paste here. This is how I'm installing on my Linux environment. Again, your package manager main vary here. Okay, so in order to use the SDL2 Mixer library, we're going to have to update some includes in our sound file as well as our build script. So the first thing that I want to do is just update our build script to include the SDL Mixer library. So let's go ahead and update our build script. And most of these libraries follow the same pattern as previous libraries. So let's go ahead and just link SDL2_mixer. And depending on your system, if you're on a Mac or Windows, it's possible that it just ends up being SDL Mixer or something else. But let's go ahead and just give that a try and see if we can find and link in the library here on our system, and we are good to go. So now let's go ahead and jump into the SDL Mixer documentation, and then we're going to start modifying our sound class here. So let me go ahead and click on the documentation here just so that I have this available throughout this tutorial. So what we're going to need to do is, again, I'm going to update the sound API here that we created previously. Now, we previously had this API where we were able to play sounds and loop sounds, and we're just using the pure SDL audio library. Well, after some time with playing around with it, I've just found that it's quite low level for us to be using this library here. While I am going to keep it because I think it achieves the job that it needs to, I think it will be more appropriate if I include, or rather create, a music class here. So let's go ahead and just create a music HPP file, and we'll go ahead and set this up. Now, music versus sounds are going to be sort of just different ideas. From the purposes of this library, we can achieve whatever we want if we just want to play a sort of one-hit sound that plays once or loop music audio. So let's go ahead and create a class here. I'm just going to call this music. And we'll have a constructor. And for now, I'm going to do all the implementation in the header file. By the time you see the source code, though, I will have split this into a separate implementation file. Again, just for speed, for this tutorial's sake, I'm going to have this set up here. Now, I do want to make sure that I can include my sound library here. So let's go ahead and just make sure that I have the appropriate include. And let me go ahead and actually try this path here, SDL2 and SDL Mixer.h. And let's go ahead and see if we get this to compile, if it finds the library. And it looks like we are good to go, and our code is able to compile and build and find the appropriate libraries. Okay, so how do we get started with the Mixer library at this point here? Well, again, our goal is just to be able to load and create a music object and have some sound looping in the background, or rather some music file. Now, if I go ahead and check out this documentation, and again, I haven't extensively worked through this so you can see how I'm learning it, because I think that's usually a value. Some functions of interest here, like opening audio, for example, there's probably going to be this init function that I need to call in order to set up what types of data files are going to be played. And then eventually I'm going to need to load some file, whether it's a WAV or just any file. Now, the advantage with the Mixer library versus the SDL sound library is, from my understanding, that you can play different formats, MP3s, OGG, MIDI files, and so on. In fact, there is just a load music file here that specifies all the different formats that can be played. So already we have this advantage by using the SDL2 Mixer library. Okay, so there are a few things that we need to do, just going ahead and looking at how to set this up here. So let's go ahead and start with the mix init function here. So this looks like how we set up the library here and the different formats that we want to be ready to use. We also have mix open audio here, which looks like this will be set up. Now, it is saying that we do have to, when we initialize SDL, do SDL init audio, and well, that's something that we've already done in our main. Let me go ahead and show you where that is set up here. I'll just split the window here and do this in our include in our SDL app. When we initialize our application, we pass in a flag here where we initialize the subsystem, so video and audio at this point. So you can look at the source code to see how that is done here. Okay, so this looks like our sort of key function here. We can see that we have to initialize the audio and pick some reasonable defaults. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with this to sort of initialize our audio system here. And let's go ahead and just paste this in. And I'll go ahead and get rid of this stuff here and format it so that it fits a little bit nicely here. And I'll make this just a little bit smaller for you. How about, there we are, just so that it fits a little bit nicer on the screen here. So these seems like reasonable defaults. Now I'm going to have to include the IOStream library here. I'll move it around later just because I want to do some logging as we're getting this set up here to say audio library not working, and then also give us the mix error. So anytime that we have a new library here, we'll make this a little bit bigger and I'll scroll down here just so you can see it on the screen here. It's good to be able to know how to get errors from that library. So in this case, it is mix error. And that's not to be mistaken with the SDL get error. Again, this is a different function because it's a different library here. Okay, and I'll go ahead and just put an end line here. And so we've got our basic error handling. There it is, all on one screen for you. Okay, so once we've opened up our audio system, let's just go ahead and try to load up some music and see if we can get this working. Okay, so I think the load music function seems quite promising here. So let's go ahead and see what that is here. Load music. And we've actually got a data type here, mix music, which will load this music here. So again, this is what we're going to try. And we can have some error handling code. Again, for simplicity, I'm going to just keep things simple here. Now I am going to want to type in some sort of string here and have a music file path here that is passed in to our system here. And we're going to want some member variable, which I'm just going to make private here for our mix music object here. And this is taking in a pointer. So mix music with caps here and the music file here. Okay, and then we will assign that pointer equal to mix load music, and whatever the music path is that the client or whoever's using this API decides. So load our music file. And I'll just put a little to-do note, have error checking here. Okay, so that should do the trick as far as loading our music file, and we're loading at a default of 44,100 kilohertz. That's sort of the playback rate. I'll just leave it as a to-do. Could configure some options for our playback. Again, depending on how much the sound quality matters for your application or the particular music that's playing, you might want to configure these values as needed. Okay, now that we have a load music, before I forget, and the reason why we're putting this in the class is I want to figure out if I can free the music. So I'm just going to go ahead and do Control F and see if there is a free. So there's a free chunk here and free music. So chunks versus music, I believe chunks are just going to be sort of quick sounds that you can play on different sort of channels, and music would be some sort of looping audio. That is my intuition, but I need to probably read up a little bit on the documentation here. But let's just go ahead and do free music and our M music here. M music, there we are. Okay, so now we should be all set there. Okay, so now that we've essentially loaded our music, now we need some functions for playing the music here. So let's go ahead and write some functions here. Play music, stop music, maybe pause music, and I'm going to have another one for play music. Actually, as part of playing the music, maybe we can have some sort of input here for whether it should be looped here. So let's go ahead and look at the playing functionalities here. Now there are a bunch of other functions here, like again, pausing or stopping, which would be different. So let's go ahead and, of course, we can query if the music's finished. Again, that's going to see if we have more audio data to play. So those are all things that we might want to add to the library, setting the mix volume. Or rather, these are as part of the different chunks here. I should stick around in the music section here, because again, those are different concepts here. So let me go ahead and look at play music here. We have our music file that we want to play. So let's go ahead and do mix, play music, the music that we have here, and if we want to loop it. Again, you can see the number of times to play it, 0 being the music is never played, and -1 being that we played the music forever. So I'm just going to match the API for now. And let's go ahead and get some documentation here. Number of times to play the music. 0 means 0, and -1 means plays forever. It's probably worth having some convenience functions just called loop music that just will indefinitely play, or just a play music function that will play once, and then maybe you can query if it ends and then play again. Again, that's up to you if you want to build on top of this API. For now, I'm just going to match what we have here, again, for the sake of a tutorial. Okay, so that should get us playing, and let's go ahead and see if we have a way to pause here. So we have mix pause, and I'll go ahead and just have that set up here. Now this is for different channels. Again, let me make sure I'm looking in my music here. We have some other cool things like fading in the music and fading out, which again, as soon as you start playing a track in, say, a video game, it's probably worth fading in the music and you know, setting some sort of milliseconds here. So that's pretty cool that this is built in. Actually, a really powerful sound library. I'm actually glad that we are switching to this. So let me just do mix pause music. Let's see, music can only be paused if it's actively playing. Okay, so let me do a few other checks here. I do want to check to ensure that music is not a null pointer, just for a little bit of safety here. And let's see here. Let's let's see if this can take in a specific music here. I guess let's just halts the playback of any particular music, and then if we wanted other chunks to layer on top of it, we could set that up here. So let's see here. Paused music. And this is going to tell us if it's paused or not. Well, let's just go ahead and do the mix pause. Mix pause. And this just pauses everything. The channel to pause on, or -1 for everything. Whoops, let me make sure I'm pausing the music here. I'm going to keep mixing these up here. Mix, pause, music. All right, so let's go ahead and just give this a quick build now that we've made a bunch of different changes here to our code, and I'll go ahead and get everything on one screen so you can see what's been going on here. And it looks like our music is working. Now, once we actually include this header, maybe we'll unveil some other errors here. But again, as simple as loading the music, freeing the music, again, so we don't have to worry about these sort of SDL calls, and then a function to play the music, and if we want to loop it, and then pause the music. Now, one last thing that's probably worth having here is the mix volume. And let me do this for the music section here. And let's go ahead and I'm going to leave this as a to-do, but I think it should be part of our API, so maybe I'll clean that up as needed here. Let me just call it set volume. And it'll take in one parameter. And it's easy enough to actually just implement this volume music, and it'll just take in the volume. So again, we're just wrapping this C library with our actual function here, and it makes things quite clean here. And this should probably be, again, a range of 0 to 128. And it looks like these values are clamped here so that we are okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and now use this in our main program. So the program that I'm using, if you recall from last time or a previous lesson, we've built a Pong game into our infrastructure. So I'm going to want to just go into our main file. We'll include music.hpp. And then let's go ahead and create a new music object. And we're just going to call it the main music track. And let's go ahead and instantiate this. We'll do this. This is in our main function. Let me just scroll up so you can see this is where we're setting up all of our objects. And under our last sound here, we will set up the music for our game. Main music track equals new music, and we need the path to that file here. So /assets music, and again, just to remind you of the path here to our resource, this is the guitar chords MP3. So guitar chords.mp3. And then we're just going to start playing it here. Main music track, play music, and let's just go ahead and have it loop here. So -1 means play forever. And that's all we need to take care of here. So let's go ahead and give this a compile, see if we've made any mistakes, and then we'll continue from there. And it looks like I don't have the path correct for our mixer. Let's see if it is in SDL2 Mixer, and I can try to query for this name. And it seems I've messed up the path again. So for these types of things on Linux, if you can't find the path, you could do a apt file search. I'm just going to search for SDL and grep for Mixer, and usually that will tell me where the header path is for the actual library when I run into these types of mistakes here. I have a suspicion what it is, but we're going to confirm it, and I can just show you again how I learned this stuff. So here's the actual path here, SDL2, and it's a lowercase m, and just SDL here. So that'll do the trick here. I'll just highlight it one more time so you can see that search. And here was that command to do that query at the bottom of the screen here. Okay, so hopefully you can pause that, fix that on your system if you need. And let's go ahead and see now, after we do this, if I've made any other silly errors at this point. Okay, so I've just got to take in, or convert this rather, to a C-style string. Again, the SDL API is C-based. And let's go ahead and see what other errors are here. This is should be mmusic, underscore music, which I'm sure many of you folks caught as I was typing. So we should be good to go there. All right, it's compiled. So I'm going to go ahead and secure my headphones here and give it a play. And let's see if our music actually plays in our Pong game. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and run our program here. And hopefully you can hear me smashing some chords on the guitar here. And you get a little bit of a rustic sound here. Maybe some of you will use it for a game someday. I'd be thrilled about that. So either way, that is our sound library working, and you can hear it in the background. Again, maybe you want to increase the volume. It's a little bit faint right now. That's just part of the track, but again, you can play with the mixer now that you have SDL Mixer working. So let me go ahead and take off my headphones here, and let me wrap us up here. So that's our lesson here. We're starting to have even a more complete game here with some looping sounds, and I'm really excited to hear or see your creations as we add some of the final pieces that we need in our game framework here, like looping music, which I think is essential as part of games or multimedia applications. So if you found this lesson valuable, make sure to like and subscribe below. Post your creations in the comments, and I'll see you in the next lesson very soon. Thanks for your time, folks.